My name is Eva de Jong-Duldig. My husband, Henri de Jong, was born in Enschede. We were married for 57 years till he died at the age of 84 in 2019. During the last years of his life, Henri organized the digitisation of the family archives and documents, and it is these photos and documents which are the basis of this presentation. They tell the family story, the de Jong family story, and they also tell the story of Enschede, the city in which he was born, and right through the turbulent 20th century. Henri and his immediate family were dealt a good hand. They played the cards as best they could, and they survived. The presentation is divided into 5 sections: 1896 to 1939, 1939 to 1945, 1945 to 1961, 1961 to 1965, and finally 1965 to 2019. There is also an epilogue.
The city of Enschede in the province of Overijssel in the region of Twente is in the far east of Holland, very near the German border.
At the beginning of the 20th century, Enschede had a population of 20,000, and the city was the center of a thriving textile industry.
The Hogere Textielschool, Higher Textile College, was founded in 1918 to offer tertiary education in the textile industry.
The first member of the de Jong family to come to Enschede was Henri's grandfather, Isaac de Jong. Isaac was born in the nearby town of Apeldoorn in 1873 and was one of 10 children. In 1896, at the age of 22, Isaac moved to Enschede, where he opened a furniture store. The business, called Firma Eva de Jong, did well, and in 1900, Isaac married Sarah Saartje Teemans. Isaac and Saartje had 5 children: Simon, Bernard, Helena, also known as Lena, Evelyn, and Nora. The older 4 are in this photo, but the youngest, Nora, was born later.
By 1919, the firma Eva de Jong had developed both wholesale and manufacturing sections.
Henri's father, Bernard de Jong, born in Enschede in 1904, worked in the family business from a very young age. Bernard travelled widely as the principal salesman. He was always an enthusiastic sportsman and also a competent gymnast.
As the business grew, the de Jongs built a new factory in the Bodenkampstraat, Enschede. In 1929, the business was consolidated as a partnership between Isaac de Jong and his 2 sons, and in 1932, Isaac stepped down altogether in favor of his sons.
A Talmud Torah Jewish religious school had been established in Enschede in 1888. By the 1930s, there were around 1,000 Jews living in the city. Generally successful in business, they were respected members of the community. In 1928, a new domed synagogue was opened in the Prinsenstraat. This imposing building, with its distinctive ornamental facade and decorated interior, mirrored the overall welfare of its congregants. It was widely recognized as the most beautiful synagogue in Holland. Bernard's sister, Lena, was the first woman married in the new synagogue. She married Moses Malfontaine. Anna kept this photo of the celebratory opening of the new synagogue in 1928. She is in the front row on the far right. Loosely translated, the sign reads, "It has come so far. The shul is in the ground. The problems are no more. Everyone will now have a place. Yom Tov, is no longer chaos. Anna was born in 1908. Her parents were Isaac Zion and Antoni Zion Buschhoff. The 1930s marked a golden age for the Jewish community in Enschede, and Isaac was a member of the Synagogue Council during this time. Anna was one of the first women to attend the Enschede Hogere Textielschool, Higher Textile College. She was also a proficient piano player and spoke several languages. Bernard de Jong and Anna Zion married on the 26th of March, 1930. Bernard's younger sister Nora, who is next to Anna in the second photo, was a bridesmaid. Their first child, Erwin, was born on the 1st of March, 1933. Henri followed soon after on the 27th of December, 1934. Here we see Henri and Erwin as children and also as young adults. The firma de Jong continued to expand, and the extended de Jong family lived comfortably in Enschede and in neighboring towns till the outbreak of the Second World War in September 1939. As it was so close to the German border, Enschede was one of the first Dutch cities to be occupied by the Germans. The first German troops entered Enschede on the 11th of May, 1940. Bernard immediately enlisted and was a corporal in the army. But the ill-prepared Dutch army was no match for the disciplined German forces and was overrun in a few days. Restrictions on Jews were soon implemented. From March 1941, no Jews were permitted to run businesses. The firma de Jong was taken over by a German Verwalter, an overseer, E.R. Weber, and it became a German company. The workforce dropped from 23 to 11, and business quickly dropped off. The first razzia, raid, against the Jews of Enschede took place on the 13th and 14th of September 1941. Bernard narrowly escaped, as by chance he was visiting his sister, Eveline, in Tiel on that very day. This is the handwritten minute book of the Enschede Talmud Torah congregation. The clauses of the Constitution in this book date back to 1888. It also contained typed minutes of the extraordinary general meeting of the congregation held on the 5th of January 1941, when it was decided to amalgamate all Jewish community organizations in Enschede. It is likely that this is the last documented decision of the Enschede Talmud Torah. Two other pages in the minute book are annotated in 1931. In October 1941, all Jews in the Netherlands were issued with new identity cards on which the letter J was prominently displayed. Here are the new J identity cards for Bernard and Anna. The de Jong family went into hiding early in 1942. Before they left, they entrusted their valuables and other precious items, such as these family prayer books, to the safekeeping of their friends, Dr. Jan Eshaus and his wife Bertje. This prayer book belonged to Isaac de Jong's brother, Solomon. This finely illustrated Passover Haggadah prayer book, with Anna's Ex Libris inside the front cover, was published in Vienna. Through the Verzet, the Dutch resistance, Bernard was able to secure false identity cards with assumed names for each member of his family. Bernard had two different identity cards, one as Hendrik Janssen and the other as Willem Johannes Termeulen. Anna became Maria Teresa Hubertina Perey. Erwin became Henk ter Merlin. Harry became Kees ter Merlin. Through friends and business connections, Bernard was able to organize safe houses for Anna, Erwin, and Harry. Here, he is pictured leaving home with his suitcase tied to his trusted bicycle. Each member of the family was hidden separately. They stayed with Catholic families in the southern Dutch provinces of North Brabant and in Limburg. Erwin and Harry attended local schools and went to church on Sundays. Harry and Erwin were moved around frequently by their father to keep them safe. Between 1942 and 1945, Harry stayed with 5 families in 5 different locations. The Cornelius Manders van der Boer family in Schaik at number 1, the Harets Kuppen family in Horst, which is at number 2, the Van Wel family in Panningen at number 3, the Welbers family in Overloon at number 4, and the Ippenberg family in Gemert, number 5. Bernard and Anna kept in touch with these families after the war, and many of the forthcoming photos are from Anna's photo albums. The Cornelius Manders van der Boer family in Schaik already had 9 children of their own when Harry came to stay. The Van Wel family in Panningen. This is a lovely photo of Harry with Bep van Wel. He also helped out on the farm. Harry and I met up with Bep van Wel's daughter, also called Bep van Wel, in Tiel in 2013, and we kept in touch afterwards. Bep passed away recently. This photo of Harry with Toen Vloed's child was taken in front of a sign reading "Forbidden for Jews." During the occupation, signs like this were put up all over Holland. Toen Vloed, a friend of Bernard, helped to find hiding places for the family. The second photo shows Bernard and a friend hiding under another of these notorious signs. Under her assumed name, Anna became the housekeeper for a priest. During this time, she wrote a recipe book in which she detailed 122 recipes. Recipe number 107, Hollandaise sauce for fish, has been translated here. Bernard worked closely with the Verzet, the Dutch resistance. He kept a number of handwritten notes which warned him of impending danger. Member of the organization and fugitive W. Pieces is hereby advised to watch out to avoid these parts. Stay inside as much as possible. There is great danger. Friend Janssen. Another one. Your fugitive, couldn't he be a Jew? He's just so sharp as those sorts of people, and he resembles one too if you look at him carefully. In any case, he's no ordinary sort of person. You've noticed this too. Do be careful with such strange people, especially now with our new mayor, because he suspects something and wants to investigate. Harry was 9 when he wrote this poem on Mother's Day, 14th of May, 1943. There is so much I want to tell you on this happy family day. Here I come to bring my flowers because it's you I love the best. So many flowers are blooming in the fields and meadows, and I thought they were growing sure and certain just for me. Happily I begin to pick them, and I thought quietly of you. I had to pick them by the ditch. See, I have the flowers now. Therefore, I shall ask Jesus to bless my mother dear, because every day she is just like our beloved lady. In 1943, Henri was hidden by Johannes and Siska Welbers in Overloon. Bernard moved him from there just before the decisive Battle of Overloon, which took place on the 30th of September to the 18th of October 1944. The battle totally destroyed the small town. Henri kept in touch with Leonard Welbers, who is top left in the first photo, and in 1992, Henri and I visited Leonard and his family in Overloon. Here, they are standing at the location of the Welbers for wartime house. The building in the background was the garage, and it was all that remained after the Battle of Overloon. In 1944, the 4 members of the de Jong family were finally reunited in Gemet, where they were hidden by Henk and Antje Ippenberg till the liberation. In the south of Holland, this took place in December 1944. The winter of 1944-45 was particularly harsh and was called the Hunger Winter. Before the war, 1,400 Jews were registered in Enschede. After Hitler became Chancellor in Germany in 1933, many German Jews had taken refuge in Enschede. After the war, only 340 returned to the city. Henri's maternal grandparents, Isaac and Antonia, seen here in Amsterdam in 1937, were deported to Auschwitz. The family received these letters from the Dutch Jewish Re-establishment Commission, who wrote on the 19th of November 1945. Isaac and Antonia Zion Bischoff were transported on the 23rd of February 1943 to the east, destination thought to be Lublin. No further information is available. On the 24th of October 1946, the Dutch Red Cross wrote, Mr. and Mrs. Zion were transported on the 23rd of the 2nd, 1943, from Westerbork to Auschwitz. Bernard's sister Helena, Lena, her husband Moses, and their 3 young children, Benny, Sarah, and Betty, were also deported and murdered in Sobibor on the 9th of April, 1943. After the war, Anna found her mother's sister, Fanny Vollmann Bischoff, in a displaced persons camp. Fanny had survived the Theresienstadt concentration camp. Fanny came to live with the de Jongs at La Sondersingle 70 Enschede till her death in 1961. Henri was very fond of his Tante Fanny and prominently displayed a photo of her for the rest of his life. Bernard's 3 other siblings, Simone, Evelyn, and Nora, and their immediate families survived the war. The engagement of Nora de Jong to Anna's cousin, Jules Zion, was the first post-war family celebration and took place in 1945. Bernard's sister, Eveline, and her husband, Maub, lived in Tiel, where the family owned a clothing shop. 2 of their sons, Eli and Ido, were born before the war. This photo was taken in 1947, soon after the birth of their youngest son, Franklin. Today, Bladestein Fashion is a landmark business in Tiel and is still run by later generations of the family. Only 3 years after the war, in 1948, Henri de Jong celebrated his bar mitzvah. Bernard's youngest sister, Nora, and her husband, Jules Zion, owned a department store in Eibergen. Henri kept a coat hanger from the business, gebruik Zion Eberg and telephone 218 for the rest of his life. In this photo, taken in 1950, we see their two daughters, Sarah and Jolene, together with Jules' niece, then 9-year-old Betty Rosenbaum. Betty's parents, Ephraim Rosenbaum Eil and Johanna Rosenbaum Zion, who was Jules' sister, as well as her baby brother Maxi, who was born in 1943, were deported and murdered in Sobibor later in 1943. Betty was looked after by Alberta and Jan Willem van Hageman during the war. In 1949, Jules Zion became Betty's guardian, and his wife Nora was co-guardian. The post-war years were very difficult for Eva de Jong and his wife, who not only mourned the death of their eldest daughter Lena and her family, but had also lost so many of their siblings and their families. Isaac passed away in 1950 and his wife died in 1959. Henri fondly remembered his paternal grandparents and also their dog, Asta. The Ippenberg and de Jong families often got together after the war. Henri attended HBS, Hogere Burgerschool, grammar school, in Enschede, and then, like his mother before him, he went to the Enschede Hogere Textielschool, graduating with a Bachelor of Science honours in 1956. An enthusiastic and accomplished sportsman, Henri played competition hockey, volleyball, table tennis, and tennis. The first wedding of the next generation took place in 1956, when Simon's daughter Sarah married Dolf Maybergen, whose family came from Almelo. Anna and Bernard are in the foreground of the next photo. From 1956 to 1958, Henri completed national service with the Royal Netherlands Air Force. He retained an interest in aircraft and flying for the rest of his life. He was proud of this medal, which commemorates a hockey match played in England between the Netherlands Air Force and the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. In 1958, Henri went to study at Leeds University, England, where he graduated in 1961 with a Master of Science degree, specializing in synthetic fibers. His first job was with the Algemeine Kunstzijde Unie, AKU, in Arnhem. Henri de Jong married Annelies Ippenberg, the oldest child of Henk and Antje Ippenberg from Gemert. The couple had two children, Robert and Tamara. The firma de Jong had been reclaimed by Simon and Bernard de Jong after the war. Through the 1950s and 60s, the business thrived under their leadership. The brothers opened a new factory in the Friesland town of Bonrevaart. Bernard and Anna de Jong kept in touch with the families who had saved their lives during the war. In 1967, they hosted the 50th wedding anniversary of Johannes and Siska Welbers. Toon Vloed, Bernard's trusted wartime friend, was also present at this event. The de Jong family always had dogs. Henri's favorite was the big boxer, Vincent. In August 1961, Henri went to Israel to represent Holland in tennis at the 6th Maccabia Games. I was playing in the same tournament for Australia. Henri and I met at the tennis courts in Tel Aviv, and we became engaged in 5 days. We married at the St Kilda Hebrew congregation in Melbourne on the 28th of February, 1962. My students from Mount Scopus College formed a guard of honor outside the shore. Our married lives started in Holland, where we lived near the Hoogevelu in an old farmhouse called Termoze at 31 Kemperbergerweg, Schaarsbergen, near Arnhem. Henri and I used to visit Enschede every weekend to stay with the family de Jong. We also visited on special occasions such as New Year, and here we are celebrating the night away. As after this, we played roulette till the early hours of the morning. In August 1962, I became Dutch national tennis champion, and this photo was taken by the popular Dutch weekly magazine Panorama. For 2 years, I represented Holland at Wimbledon and played international matches throughout Europe. Our first child, Tanya, was born in Arnhem in 1964. In 1965, we returned to Melbourne. Anthony was born later that year, and in 1971, our third child, Peter, was born. The 1970s saw the demise of the textile industry in Holland, and particularly in Enschede, which could not compete against cheaper imports from Southeast Asia. On the other side of the world, however, in Melbourne, Australia, Henri applied his extensive textile knowledge in the growing textile industry there. From 1965 to 1977, he worked with Fibre Makers ICI. Then between 1978 and 96, he was general manager of Melbourne Industries during Melbourne. During this time, he traveled widely in Europe, Asia, and the USA, and made a significant contribution to the growth of the textile automotive industry. Henri established his own company, Henri Associates. Together with his Japanese business partner and friend, Yutaka Tsushimoto, he developed fabrics for the Australian automotive industry, supplying locally manufactured Holden and Ford vehicles. Henri's fabric, Gloire Vulcana, was used for internal trim in the last Holden Commodore produced in Australia. In 2011, new regulations allowed Henri to become an Australian citizen, while at the same time he could keep his Dutch nationality. He proudly framed his new Australian citizenship certificate. Henri played bridge with his parents from a very young age and retained his interest in this game all his life. Among many notable achievements, he won the senior pairs event at the Gold Coast and was a member of the winning Victorian seniors team in the ANC Congress in Darwin in 2012. Bernard retired from Firma de Jong in 1968. This was the last celebration of Bernard and Erna, who sadly died prematurely at 61 in 1971. Afterwards, Bernard moved to Switzerland, where he lived in Ascona for the rest of his life, passing away in 1998. Henri's brother, Erwin, passed away in 2003, and his wife, Annelies, in 2006. The descendants of Simon de Jong continued to operate the firma E de Jong, which celebrated its 100th anniversary in 1998. As reported in the local paper Tubantia in 2005, the Bodekamstraat factory and site were sold to the municipality. After the war, the post-war Jewish community in Enschede continued to decline and became unviable. Many Dutch Jews emigrated to Israel. Henri's aunt, Min Zion, emigrated in 1947, and 5 of his Zion cousins, all related to Erna and to Nora de Jong immigrated between 1964 and 1981. In 2020, they and their immediate descendants numbered 115 people, extending over 4 generations. Only about 70 Jews still live in Enschede today. In 2012, Henri and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary in Melbourne. Our family celebrated my birthday on the 11th of February 2019 with our children, Tanya, Anthony, and Peter, their partners, Peter, Belinda, and Lucy, and our granddaughters, Andrea and Emma. Henri passed away on the 5th of October 2019. 2 weeks later, his third grandchild, Solomon Henri, was born to Peter and Lucy. This presentation would not have been possible without the assistance I have received from Kalana Kazarik and Janine Kibble-White. The images and documents are principally sourced from the de Jong family archives. I also owe thanks to other members of the de Jong family and the Zion family, and I would like to thank all of you for your contribution. Thank you for listening.